Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Nather, and I am on a mission to understand how young people see the world. You are about to watch an interview between myself and someone else who is under 25 years old about their worldview. That is their identity, religion, and politics. As you watch this interview, please keep in mind that in 5, 10, 40 years from now, we are not going to be the same people as we are today. And if we are the same people as we are today, then we have done a bad job of listening and learning to the people around us. So without further ado, enjoy. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. This is Ekram. I wanted to interview him because he's Muslim.
Yes.
And so just to start, tell me a little bit about yourself, like 2 to 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Ekram Ulvi, full name. I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
I moved out from there like when I was pretty young, and then we traveled around, and then we came to Dallas when I was getting into kindergarten, and so I've been here for a while, and I attended a private school.
Okay.
It was like a Islamic school, so it was one like next to the mosque. And
is that here in DFW?
Yes,
Okay.
It's right here in Irving.
Okay, cool.
So it was like, it's regular curriculum plus, Islamic or, aspects to it as well.
Okay, so kind of just like a Christian private school, but
Kinda,
Islam private school.
Basically.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Been there my whole life from kindergarten until I graduated. After that, I went to college.
Okay.
Like a normal person. Went to UTD. And graduated from there. So I've done my undergrad in neuroscience.
Okay.
And I graduated pretty early, since I'm still 20. So now I'm.
Wait, so you graduated with your bachelor's?
Yeah, my bachelor's.
Okay,
yeah.
so did you do like AP studies or something? Or?
Yeah, I did dual credit APs.
Okay.
In high school.
Okay.
And that helped me translate and go pretty fast through my curriculum.
It sounds
stuff.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was pre-med. But then, pre-med life doesn't suit everyone.
Yeah.
So I switched over more into, I'm now doing a master's in applied cognition neuroscience. So it's like basically cognitive modeling, AI, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I started that. But now I'm also doing some more Islamic studies. So there's an institute called Qalam Institute.
Okay.
Where we do more religious, studies and stuff like that. And we can talk more about it if you want to.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing some classes, certifications, trying to get a job, the whole shebang.
Okay, really cool.
Yeah.
Are you in a relationship at all?
No.
No, okay. I was just curious. Because it sounds like you're a slam dunk. But, okay. So then tell me about what are key points of your identity?
I would say being Muslim in itself is kind of my core identity.
Okay.
Because a lot of people in terms of religion think of religion just like something to practice, right? And so like just, it's something on the side, you could be a lot of things, but, there's religion on the side as well. But for Muslims, most Muslims think of Islam or as a way of life. So because it actually, if you go through like all the details, you'll see that there's a lot of practical things of how you approach life, how to approach business, how to approach scheduling and stuff like that, organizing your life.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's like the major part of my identity. And like aside from that, like in terms of culture, I'm Indian background.
Okay.
Yeah. I was born here.
So,
American.
yeah, were your parents immigrants from
Yes,
India?
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, like, would that be second generation immigrant? Is that the way that works?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. They immigrated as I was born here, so I think I would be first generation, second generation. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because like I remember my dad talks about him being like third generation immigrant, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it starts when you're born here or
if you move there, because then that would be the first generation that immigrated here, second generation.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's really cool. So Islam is the dominating part of your identity. And that shapes every other part of your identity, it sounds
basically.
like. So tell me how that, what are the nuances of what it shapes?
It's a lot, but I'll try to break it down.
Yeah.
So in terms of practicing, obviously they're like the core parts of the religion. You pray, you give charity, You fast.
Mhm.
Fasting is also the 5 pillars that we have are prayer, the shahada itself, which is like declaring your faith in God.
Okay.
Fasting,
Mhm.
charity, and then the pilgrimage, which we
Okay.
go to Mecca to do.
Okay.
And that's like if you can, if you're
Mhm.
able to, then you should do it once in your life.
Okay.
And so
Is
those
that
are the
something you've had the opportunity of doing?
I've went to so basically what you're supposed to do is just use your own money and stuff to actually go.
Okay.
So I went with my parents. So
Ah.
we didn't go for the main pilgrimage is called Hajj.
Okay.
But there's also like a smaller pilgrimage. It's called Umrah. So you could so
Okay.
Hajj there's a designated like 10 days that you're supposed to go in a year.
Okay.
But Umrah you could do any time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents went to Hajj, and I was like with my cousins and stuff at that time, because Hajj is like a whole process not suitable for kids.
Yeah.
But then I went to Umrah, so I had the opportunity of. So it's like you do some of the aspects of the major pilgrimage, but not all of it.
Okay.
So, but it's this really holistic experience.
Okay. Nice.
But yeah. Sorry, I got totally sidetracked.
No, that's all good. I'm asking questions about something I don't know much
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
So, whenever you're in the middle of explaining something, I will oftentimes.
Oh yeah.
interject,
You
but-
were talking about the major components of the
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
So those are the 5 pillars. So basically, those would be in terms of worship, your practical doing things, right? But then there's also other aspects like in character, like how should you behave,
Mhm.
like how does your interactions with other people, like what should it be, like what is the example of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you interact with other people? How do you deal with hardships? How do you,
Yeah.
how do you deal with business too?
Mhm.
It's practical stuff like that as well. Like there's narrations about how you should do contracts and stuff like that. You probably don't think religion would have like something about like doing contracts, right?
Yeah.
But it's really comprehensive, so it integrates itself in all aspects. And there's like even religious like regular secular education where like sciences and stuff like that. It's also in Islam, and striving for finding like putting your first of all like perfection in stuff you do, and then like, trying to excel and discover the intricacies of the universe, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the experiences that you've had that led you to? I mean, it sounds like your family's Muslim, but what experiences have you had in your life that led you to being Muslim?
Yeah, I would say even if you're born in a religion, I feel like everyone goes through that time where like you're trying to discover yourself, right? You find yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Since I was in Islamic school from a very young age, I had the background and the knowledge of knowing like, okay, who is God? Like, why are we following him? Why do we pray? Because we pray, like Muslims pray 5 times a day. And for a lot of people, it'd be like, damn, why are you doing so much, right? But it's like, why do you do it? Because it's like, if you really think about it, you're only putting like 25 minutes of your whole day, 24 hours to God, which is not much. And for someone that's giving you everything, so it seems very meaningless at that point. It seems like you're doing less, actually, if you think about it, right? So I was kind of sidetracked from there. But basically, so I had these foundations, these answers to questions that probably went over my head at that age, as a young age.
Okay.
But when it came to me where like I was trying to find myself, it's like, like, why am I doing it? I kind of knew the answers. I didn't have to look that far for it.
Yeah.
But other people would probably struggle because they don't know. They have to discover themselves, right? So, I'm like confident in the message of Islam, and I could go into intricacies, but I'm pretty sure it's not the objective of this podcast. But yeah, that's like it integrates itself really well in my life, and I'm content with that.
Okay, cool. So I actually do want to ask you a little bit more about because it's something I don't know much about.
Yeah, sure.
And I have not had many interactions with people that like actual people that believe in Islam. I just have. I've read the Quran like 7 years ago. Whenever I was going through my discovery phase, my dad was like, "Okay, well, you should go and look and because I asked him like, why are we Christians? Like that doesn't there's Judaism, there's Hinduism, Buddhism. Is it Hinduism? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, yeah. So I was kind of doing some soul searching there and landed on Christianity because of what I knew book-wise, but I've never talked to a person that
Mhm.
believed in Islam, and so I don't know the perspective of somebody
sure.
that does believe in it. So can I ask you, did you ever, was it always Islam versus like not believing in God, or was there ever like, okay, is Buddhism, Christianity,
Mhm.
like what about those? Has that ever been a consideration?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think the first question everyone basically has is like between God or no God, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that was like kind of the first one. Why would you believe there is a God?
Mhm.
And I don't want to offend any atheists or those that don't really believe there is God,
Mhm.
but there is a lot of signs that would make you want to believe that
Yeah.
there is God.
Yeah.
Right. Just look around us. Like we're in a park. It's beautiful here.
Yeah.
And you just think about the intricacies. And I'm a neuroscience major, and I've studied bio and stuff like that. And if you go into the intricacies of the human body, and if you go
Mhm.
into nature and stuff like that, it's really hard to not
Not believe in God.
not
You're like,
believe in
there's
God.
got to be
It's
something.
really complex. I
Yeah.
remember there's also this like philosophical discussion about like, is mathematics derived from the calculations like that are present in the universe? Was it already created, or did we create it ourselves? To understand the intricacies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, because there's like really complexity to nature in itself.
Mhm.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
like mathematical, I don't know what you call it, scenarios like golden
Mhm.
ratio and stuff like
Yeah,
that you see
yeah.
in nature,
Mhm.
right? And so it's like, oh, did we like create it to understand nature, or was it already embedded part of nature and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was just a whole discussion, but
Yeah.
but it's like, God really does exist, right?
Mm-hmm. I can agree with you on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think I can see that. But then after that, it's like, okay, the other religions, like where does
Mhm.
that take into place? Because they also believe in God, right?
Yeah.
And so what Muslims believe is that the other books, like the ones that the Christians follow, you guys follow the Bible, right?
Mhm.
Which
Yep.
we call the Injil.
Okay.
And then
Injil?
Injil, yeah.
Injil,
So there's
okay.
like 4 books. We call the Torah is the one that was revealed to Moses.
Mm-hmm. Is that Exodus or Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers? Or
The names get lost.
Oh,
I'm so
okay,
sorry.
okay.
But yeah, the stuff. Yeah, I think so. I believe so.
Okay.
So the ones that the Jews practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there is so Torah, Injil. The Injil would be what was revealed to Jesus, or we call him Isa.
Mm-hmm.
And then there would be the Zabur, which was revealed to David.
Okay.
So we know that these books were revealed in the past. So we believe in them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
We believe that they were revealed.
Mm-hmm.
But and the Quran was revealed after that,
Mhm.
and the Quran mentions how that while they were there, that we did reveal these books, like God says, like He revealed these books, that a lot of it was not preserved, and so they could be. And again, I don't want to get into it.
That's all good.
So
Yeah.
that's what we believe, and
Mhm.
so we kind of studied like why would you think that, stuff
Mhm.
like that. And why would you believe that the Quran was the book that you should actually believe in, that was actually preserved?
Mhm.
Why was it
Yeah.
preserved, right? And so the Quran in its essence is preserved in like 2 ways. So I mean, preserved in many ways, but first of all, it has like an oral tradition, and it
Okay.
has a written tradition.
All right.
So oral tradition was basically there's a lot of people
Mhm.
that actually memorized the whole Quran.
Yeah.
Like all 600 plus pages, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I had the grace to do that, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so once you actually, so I did that at a young age. I did that when I was like 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you realize it's crazy how people memorize it. They have the capability, and it's like, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's like, it's also easy in its essence. Really easy for people to memorize the Quran, and it's like a kind of like a miracle of it, right?
Okay.
And I know kids that have memorized it in like 8 months, which is insane.
Okay.
If you did like 600 pages and memorizing it top to bottom,
Yeah.
it's like, because I did it like 2.5 years or so.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And so, first of all, that's like, it shows the preservation, because if you go anywhere in the world and if you ask someone to read the Quran,
Mhm.
they read it the same exact way as someone from anywhere else.
Okay. Yeah.
So you could see like it's never changed. There's no discrepancies
Mhm.
in how it's said and everything, right? And then there's also the written tradition where it was preserved in books,
Mhm.
and if you find manuscripts back in the day, even there's like new ones getting discovered now, like found
Yeah.
in like hidden libraries and
Yeah.
stuff, and they all show the same written,
Mhm.
text as
Yeah.
right. So you could see the preservation, and it's like, okay, why would you believe a book? Like, how do you know that that's actually the words of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you actually study that, you see the miracles of it, Like I'm studying some of them right now too. So
Mhm.
I had the opportunity to memorize it, but I wasn't someone that knew the Arabic language really well. So I actually memorized it without
Mhm.
really like knowing the Arabic language. I knew how to read it, I knew how to write it, but I didn't really know the meanings of it.
Okay.
And Arabic in its sense is like a really, really deep language.
Okay.
And I was like, and I was studying into it recently. I was like, man, like English is
Is-
very so broad, like because Arabic has like parts where like there's like a root word,
Mhm.
and then words are derived out of it.
Yeah.
So right, so you have amal, which is like the action, and then you have amal, which is like good deeds, and like you know
Mhm.
you have words, and then abidun would be the people who do deeds or stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
it's very intuitive too,
Mhm.
because if you know the root word, then you know all the derivatives of it. You don't have like someone like you don't have different words for this for the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
action.
It's similar to, I imagine, like Portuguese and
Probably,
Spanish,
yeah.
and that like depends on, it's vamos if it's let's go, and then bam or
Probably, I
yeah,
don't
or
know.
just
Yeah, I've
I
not
don't know.
explored much religions, but I mean,
Okay.
sorry, much languages.
Yeah,
But
okay.
again, sidetracking.
Yeah, it's all good.
But so I was talking about the language.
Yeah, the language of Arabic, and you're trying to learn it
Yes.
because
And so now I'm trying to learn it and try to understand like the deep meanings of the words and
yeah.
why were they used, and like what was the reason of using them, like the verses in itself, what was the reason for revealing them, and the intricacies of that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my belief comes in, and it's hard. Like right now that's where I was trying to go into.
Yeah.
Right now we were studying one of the miracles that we were talking about, the fall of Rome, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So Rome would be conquered, and this was revealed before, like this passage was revealed before the fall of Rome, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just learning that, and it's like a miracle in itself, because people thought like, oh, because the Rome, I think, just defeated like the Persians, and they were like, wow, like how are they gonna actually fall? They're like the superpower of the time, right?
Yeah.
But then this reverse was revealed. It was like, well, with the Rome, like the people, they will definitely be conquered.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was one of the miracles. And there's a bunch of miracles, the
Okay.
scientific miracles, and we discuss those, we talk about them. Yeah.
Okay, so, so like whenever you say miracle, is it, because I'm, just because like I think I might have a different understanding of what a miracle is.
Yeah,
What would be like your, whenever you see something and you would say, oh, that's a miracle. Like, what's the defining factor? What's it?
Sure.
How do you define it?
So there were miracles in the past too, right? Like Jesus had the table of the feast,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We call it the ma'idah, like the table that was filled with food. That was,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty sure it was like paintings of it too and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
right?
think it's the Last Supper.
The
is
Last
what-
Supper, Last Supper. Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we believe in that too. We believe there's like the staff of Moses.
Okay.
And then there was other miracles back in the past,
Okay.
that were revealed to prophets, that the prophets used, to show signs of God. Because anyone could say anything,
Yeah.
but then
and-
like you need something to actually put belief into
Yeah,
it, right? And so one of the miracles that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad was the book that was continuous in its nature. So it was a continuous miracle because it was applicable at that time, but it was also applicable to anyone that follows through.
What was the book?
The Quran.
The Quran. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah. I'm just.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, yeah. So the Quran. The Quran is the book that I memorized, and the one that.
So that was the one that was revealed to
to Prophet
Muhammad.
Muhammad, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Quran was revealed to Muhammad, and that was so kind of like how the Ten Commandments were given to Moses, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, because I up until this point I had heard like the Roman Empire falling and it being a miracle. I'm like, well, okay, I don't know. Just to interject here really quick, Ekram wanted me to correct that it wasn't the fall of Rome, it was the conquest of Rome. So he misspoke there, and I'd only ever heard that it was a prophecy about Rome, not that it was a conquest or fall. So just wanted to pause really quick and just correct both of us. I'll let you get back to listening. Because I haven't heard it in that kind of verbiage.
Sure.
It's like, it was something that I like to think about as was us winning World War II over the Nazis. Was it a miracle?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there was some providence, but there was a heck of a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay, I digress. I was just
No, you're fine.
kind of curious.
So So yeah, so like just like the other books were revealed to the prophets, so we believe that the Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
And the miracle for that was that it's continuous and preserved nature. So so like the part we were just talking about in the class like this day before yesterday, I think, about like it mentioned the different miracles of the different prophets, and then that miracle for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam be like the continuous nature of the Quran and its preservation. So yeah, in terms of miracles, but yeah, again, miracles of different types. You know, like there's the miracle of Prophet Muhammad of the moon splitting, right?
Okay, yeah.
So they was seen at the time of the Prophet, but obviously these miracles we don't see, right?
Yeah.
So like, how do we actually believe them? It's like kind of like hearsay type of thing, where someone said it and we kind of believe it. But like now you need something else to believe in, right? Something to put forth to actually put your faith into.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Quran has been that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. So moving from religion, and maybe we'll be touching on it probably
sure.
throughout. But how does your identity? So how would you say, like, Muslim, someone who believes in Islam, like is like
one who practices Islam? Yes.
So as one who practices Islam, and that's a key part of your identity, how does that affect your politics?
Politics is interesting.
Okay.
Because
is that something you feel comfortable talking about?
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of distant from it because again, politics in itself is like, do you actually really know what's going on? Like if you want to take a stance, like you actually have to understand like the whole aspect of it.
Well, what are things that you care about, and maybe if there's nothing you do care about, what are the things that you don't care about and why?
Okay. Obviously the greater good of people, that would be definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Right. But then again, the thing with politics is that what do you define that as, and what does all these terms actually mean? Like, what are you actually following? Like, I actually had a question for you.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have on your podcast is conservative Gen Z, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does the term conservative for you mean? Because again, conservative is just like you're firm on your beliefs, right? But like, what are the beliefs in itself? You know?
Yeah. So for me, being a conservative is, one, I am against abortion. I'm against specifically LGBTQ plus teaching in school, and specifically like gender affirming surgery for people who are minors. I think that it's, I don't agree with everything on the right side of the aisle, but I wouldn't call myself a Republican because things that financially Republicans, do, I don't necessarily agree with it entirely. Like, okay, the welfare systems we have, I think it's a healthy welfare system. I think that, and also, I don't agree at looking at people's race and treating them based off of their race in any form, whether it's affirmative action, slavery, saying a slur, not hiring somebody. I just disagree with it entirely.
Okay.
So, and that's the things I would attach to being conservative, and chief among those is being a Christian, which I think that specifically in the Midwest, where I am from, if you are a Christian, you're like 99% of the time going to land on that side of the definition of conservative, liberal, so on and so forth. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Clarity. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, in terms of my beliefs for what politically society should look like and stuff like that, would be just based on like the example. Again, it ties back to religion for me, because it's like I could believe in something, but what makes it right or wrong? Like you need some guide for that, right?
Yeah.
So, so I believe that religion gave us a guide. Again, I don't want to put too much talk about religion. I know you're trying to focus on politics right now.
Yeah.
So, again, so
I asked you how your religion affects your politics.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So first of all, in terms of race and people, we believe that all people should be treated equally, for sure,
Okay.
right? There's equality among everyone, regardless of race, religion, whatever, right? And the only what we have in religion is like nothing differentiates one another except for maybe like your faith, right? And faith, you can't really judge someone by that either, because only God knows, like, you know, our faith, right? So basically, you can't discriminate on anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely no for that discrimination of any sort, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to abortions, again, it's a very topic, but we have our guidelines in Islam about like what that does look like. Like
what does it look like?
Again, I don't know all the details, and again, forgive me if I say anything wrong. Don't take it as an attribute to Islam, you know. But I'm pretty sure you could search it up and, you know, find out if you search it properly. And then I just hear saying what someone said.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's after I forgot. I feel like it was like 8 weeks or something like that, where we believe the soul is like put into a child in the womb, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, when it comes to like rape or, you know, those type of circumstances, then abortion would be allowed before those like that, before the soul is like you know, put into the body. And there's more rulings to that. Again, I'm just saying generalized rulings, and I could be like a little wrong in the details.
Yeah.
So in terms of when it comes to rape or any, you know, those circumstances, then it would be allowed to have abortion.
So rape and the other circumstances seemed vague. So
I couldn't think of any other circumstance, but like any circumstance that would be in that field, like of like where you were wrongfully, like, or if it was a child and you have to, like, you know, they were forced into it or something like that. I guess rape would pretty much
that's
encompasses everything, right?
Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't know how you would
I can't think of it
forcefully without
I guess it would be rape. Yeah. I guess everything in that sense, right? But if it was something like you had the option to do, like, you know, engage in sex, and then you had, you know, a child, then, and that place you shouldn't be able to allow, you know, have abortion, because it's kind of like the consequence of your actions, you know. And and obviously, you were talking about relationships before. I didn't really touch on it before, but we don't believe in any premarital interactions or stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
or
sex or whatever.
Is it interactions, like you can't like go on a date, like there's no courting, holding hands?
Exactly. But like to some extent, so like obviously if it's for marriage, like then you're allowed to talk and stuff, and you could talk in terms of business too. So it's not like for like you seclude yourself completely from women, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. But it's like if it's not objective in nature, and if it's just like, oh, you're just messing around, you know, and stuff like that, then you probably shouldn't, because then it will just probably lead to immorality sin. Or, you know, and sin. You know. Yeah. But again, if it's like for marriage, you're allowed to talk. You're not gonna, like, it's not arranged marriage type of thing where you just like you don't talk to each other, you don't see each other before. But so I don't have, you know, a girlfriend or anything because of that. So if I was to find someone that was suitable, and we would obviously talk, you know, we would talk it out. We'll go through the questionnaires, you know, try to see if we're compatible, and then, you know, we have marriage called nikah. Which is like, you know,
can I pause you for a moment so I can restart the cameras? Yes. Go ahead and start from what you call marriage. Niha, is that what you said?
Nikah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's like the ceremony where we would actually conduct to actually have a guy and, you know, girl get married, you know, basically. So you would perform that, and then you would be legally and from Islamic perspective, like, married, right?
Okay.
And then you could engage in anything after that.
But
before that, anything would be, you know, immoral. It would be a sin. And so if we're talking about, you know, intercourse and having kids and abortions, then obviously anything before marriage would be a sin. And anything that you were willed to do, like if you engage in it yourself, you agree to it, you know, at that point, then you shouldn't have abortion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. Okay.
So those are standpoints, and yeah.
Okay. So any other thing politically that you want to touch on, or
can you give me some topics? So like,
well, if you don't care about politics, then
I mean, I could talk a little bit just to give it like some background. So when in terms of LGBTQ, right?
Yeah.
It's I know a lot of people think that Islam is very oppressive to the LGBTQ community, because it's just a whole story of Lut, which is a prophet that came before, and it's a story in the Quran where they were pretty much a lot of them were gay, right?
Okay.
And so they would have men-to-men sexual intercourse,
Okay, yeah.
and basically the whole city was punished. So they had a
Mhm.
prophet revealed to them, sent to them, and they discarded him and they didn't listen to anything he was saying. And so the whole city was punished. It's like, okay, damn, like, oh, wow, if I just practice these things, well, am I just gonna get punished and I get destroyed, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot to it. So
Mhm.
so having the inclination of like wanting to like a guy, or guy to guy, right, or for a girl to like another girl, or other stuff like that,
Yeah.
or feeling like you're a guy or feeling like you're a girl, right? Those inclinations, we believe, are like a test to us. So other people get tested by different things, different desires, right? So Islam in essence is practicing but also control. So it'll be practicing, the religion, its faith, and its core principles, but then also controlling your desires as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
right?
just because you want to have sex with a woman doesn't mean you act on it.
Yeah.
Or should.
Yeah.
And so therefore having a desire to have intercourse with the same sex doesn't mean that you should. Or should act on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we believe it was a test. So it's not wrong in essence, like to have the inclinations. Like you're not like someone punished for that, right? But it's punishable if you act upon it publicly, especially. And so they are, in terms of Islamic law, there is punishments for people that act upon it publicly, and there's witnesses and stuff like that. So when it comes to the LGBT community, it's like we know that these inclinations and desires are there, but our job, in essence, our test, or if you were to have that, would be to suppress those desires. And those are our tests, and we all have our different desires. We all have our different greeds. We all have stuff that we need to put away. And so the people of Lut, to go back to the story, they were not only engaging in these type of acts, but they were getting violent with it too. So they would be raping kids. They would rape caravans that would pass through.
This the same city as Sodom and Gomorrah in the Torah?
I'm not sure.
Okay, is it in the Quran or is it?
It's in the Quran.
Okay. Because I know that you're familiar with Sodom and Gomorrah, I assume.
Probably not. I'm so bad with names, so
okay.
So
they're like basically these twin cities that God rained down fire on.
Fire.
Because
it was not fire. So basically, it was like stone. I don't know.
It was like stone and fire. That's like what was rained down on the city.
Maybe there are some similarities, because again, we don't like fully discredit the Bibles and stuff in the stories, but we don't fully accept them as well, just because we don't know what is like falsified or whatever. But again, I don't want to.
I got you. I'm not here to. I'm not here to argue.
So the story of Lut. So basically, they were not only engaging these sexual in tendencies, but they were also getting violent with it, and so that sexuality came with violence, and that's why they were punished, because they were being rough with it. They were people that caravans, they would come, they would like rob them, and then rape them, and then guess if someone had a guest come over, they would go and like break into the house and rape these guys. It was like terrible. Like,
super bad.
Full evil, right? And so that's why they were punished. And that's like the circumstances that they were punished for, right? So if you like were to engage in such an act, it's not like you're abomination or something like that. It's like, again, you could seek forgiveness and get past that.
So what does seeking forgiveness look like in Islam?
I know Christians have a totally different perspective on this.
Yeah, which is
So basically, it's if you commit a sin, and God knows that we'll commit sins, right? And so we're basically supposed to repent. And that would be like, saying like we repent to God for these sins, talking about it, reflecting on it.
Yeah.
And then trying not to do it again. And obviously, even God knows that there are people that will do these sins again.
Is there anything you're supposed to do, or like anything just repenting?
Just repenting.
Just repenting. Okay.
It's not. Again, you could give charity. There's different circumstances for different sins and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I can't remember one, but there's like you have to give like charity if you do this or something like that. I forget the examples.
What is there something specific like that you practice in your own life? Like if you commit a sin, like you say a fib, or you are mean to somebody, or like I'm not trying to impose that on you.
Not one I can think of.
Okay.
Not one I can think of. But I know there are circumstances. Again, there are circumstances. So, but for the most part, for any sin, is you are not. If you were to, first of all, you shouldn't try to. But if you do commit into it, then you should seek forgiveness from God.
Okay.
And there's like, and people be like, okay, God's not merciful. And stuff like that. People say that about Islam, like God's not merciful. Why doesn't He just forgive the sins in the first place? Why do you have to repent and stuff like that to forgive the sins? But we believe that action is what we put a lot of emphasis on action. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so you would have to put the action. You have to put the work to actually get the mercy of God. And we like if you ask for forgiveness, it's not like, oh, God forgive me. It's like do we actually know that God will forgive us, right? So you have to be like in the constant act of hoping that God forgives us, putting sincerity in our actions to show that we actually
Okay, so I'm gonna check the timer really quick. Yeah. And I'm gonna express that I'm asking this and like I'm not trying to argue at all.
No, sure.
I'm just curious. So, yes. Because do you believe or agree with at some point that so I'll ask this question and I'll explain why I'm asking it, and then I'll go back to it so that we don't forget it. So, do you believe that at some point God required sacrifices for atonement for sins, like He did in the Torah? And then, do you practice that now? If not, why? So, and the reason I just didn't know if there's anything that changed. That's why I'm like trying to connect the dots. Is like, why is it different now?
Yeah.
And what's
I
can
explain that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of that's what if you meant by sacrifices will be like repentance as an actual doing, like praying. So in our prayers, in our reflection, and so we would try to do good to replace the bad that we did.
Okay.
And so it's not just about like, oh, okay, God forgive me, and then you just go about your day. No, it's like you have to actively do more things to.
The reason the sacrifice I bring up is like animal sacrifice that Jews did and some still do to atone for their sins. Like, is that something that you guys recognize as being true, or that was also corrupted?
So there are actions that expiate sins, if that's what you're trying to say. So it's not like for a specific sin that I would do the specific act to get rid of that sin.
Okay.
But it's more like there are actions that you can do that will get rid of your sins as well. So like, remember the pilgrimage I was talking about, Umrah and Hajj? Those are like said to remove sins from you. And so there are opportunities. They're basically opportunities from God for us, and there's a bunch of them. There's a ton of them. Yeah. About praying at the middle of the night, or giving charity, or even this act of just like we do this thing before prayers of cleaning ourselves. Like so basically, you just wash your hands, you wash your face, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just to
that
purify.
Healthy.
Yeah. It's a healthy. There's also scientific like good things about that too. Yeah. So again, going back to it. So these things rid of our sins. So like every time you wash yourself, you're also getting rid of sins as well too.
Yeah.
So these acts, which are holistic in nature, are also ways of also decreasing your sin. And then when it comes to sins itself, we are told to basically sacrifice our it's called nafs, where like our desires basically, and to suppress those sins as much as possible. Because if you're not suppressing yourself, if you're just asking for forgiveness and not actively trying to not do the sin again or be better, then it's not sincere, right?
Yeah.
So if you're actually trying to get forgiven for that sin, then you would try to implement ways to stop doing that sin. And again, if you do fall into it again, but if you actually tried and if you actually repent, then you would be forgiven.
So because this is something I hear that's labeled on Islam a lot, that I've never seen it in my life, and not that I've had any friends that are Islam, but like I used to live in Chicago and going to the like north part where there's a whole bunch of Islam people. I'm not like walking down the corner and somebody sees me wearing a "Jesus loves you" bro shirt and is like, I gotta kill it. Like that's not a thing.
We love Jesus too.
Yeah. So, okay. So one of the things is it like what's the, I don't know. And this is reaching into a part that I didn't plan on asking, but I'm here now, and I'm like, oh man, I really want to know. Maybe if you can say like, okay, we want to talk about it later, that'd be fine too. But what's the what would be like the punishment for not believing in Islam? Like, if you're a Christian and you're trying to live life, like, because it's almost all the same. Like, there's like a couple. Making the travel to Mecca thing that...
Yeah, I mean, those are just practical things, right? It's more of, like, belief, like, what makes it different, right?
And what makes it different, and then what would be the punishment or consequence of not believing in it?
So, there is, in the Quran, there's a lot of emphasis on punishment. And people, like, when they read the Quran, they'll be like, oh, wow, there's talks about a lot of punishment, right? Stuff like that. But the punishment, in this essence that, like, in the time of the Prophet, and even now, there are people that know the truth, like they know what might be right and they believe in God, but then they ignore all that to follow their desires or, enjoy the worldly pleasures, right? And there's nothing wrong with enjoying like what Allah, God gave you, right? Yeah. But it's like they'll put everything aside and they'll just engage in sins and try to be find enjoyment in life, right? Yeah. And so for those people, even though they knew the truth, like then there will be like punishment of hell, right? Yeah. For people that didn't know, like they don't know the full message of Islam, right? Or they got a misconstrued image of Islam, right? They will be accounted for what they know. So so it's not like there will be, and God knows like the way of, there's a lot of details on it, but it differs from person to person. It's like if you never got the message of Islam, right? Then you're not going to be tested on that. You're not going to be judged for that.
Let me ask you like a more practical way. Like what if, like, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to walk away and I'm not going to believe in Islam, right? Like I'm still going to be a Christian. So what would be like the natural like consequence of me choosing to be a Christian, even though you've explained to me a fair bit about Islam?
It'll be basically if I say one puts, if you want, you're going to hear the spiel. Yeah. Okay, so it would be like, if I tell you, like, what makes you so firm on the Bible? Like, what's the thing that's like, oh, I know for a fact that it's the truth and that everything in it is right and everything in it is for the word of God.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the thing that makes me believe that the Bible is the de facto truth, that it trumps all the other religions. So I started with the same place where God's real. Okay. There's metaphysical truths and like moral compasses and like all the stuff of why God's true. All right, well, let's look at I'm going to go over some of the, there's some weeds that I don't want to cover. I'm going to skip forward a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
What religions, like what book is most believed in? Okay, well, the Torah. That's like what, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, like that seems really solid. There's millennia of people that believe in that. Okay, let's start from there. So why so I if we go from the Torah and believe in the Torah, what comes next? And then you look at the prophets that Jews still include in their book, and I don't know where Islam lands on it. The primary thing was in between Judaism and Christianity at this point, because Buddhism didn't seem to have as maybe there's just not as much history written on it, but there wasn't. It didn't seem as founded in
fair enough.
in history and what felt. It
didn't seem complete.
It didn't feel like a complete religion, and so anyways, I was really just looking at Judaism and Christianity, and so then whenever I went from if you look at Isaiah. And Psalms and the prophecies that they have in there, Jesus fulfills that perfectly. So, in that being a matter of, depending on which historian you look at it, from 1,200 years to 400 years before Christ comes, there's these really specific prophecies about him. Like being nailed on a cross and being the atonement for our sins and that kind of thing. And from what, I can't recall it off of my head right now, but whenever I was looking into Islam, it didn't look like there was any prophecies that were fulfilled as far as Muhammad, Muhammad's the prophet,
Yes,
so he's not the son. Is he the Messiah? Then?
No.
Okay.
So basically, we do believe in Jesus. So I do want to say, so everything we agree about Jesus being but we see him as a prophet, while you guys probably see him as God, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see him, we believe in everything that was before. It's like
Okay,
with Jesus coming, him having all these miracles. We believe in them too. The only thing would be like, so you guys say that, like, I mean, I don't want to like generalize or anything. Like, there's also prophecies for the Prophet Muhammad that were revealed, and they were actually true. So in the Torah, we just learned about this. We were just talking about it the other day. About in the Torah, it says that there will be an unlettered man that will come with a message, and it goes on. And there's also places where it's like there will be someone named Ahmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so all these are in the previous books, and then when when Prophet Muhammad came, there were a bunch of Jews, and there's also Sa'ad ibn, one of the people that were in Mecca. I forgot his full name.
Yeah.
But he was a Jew, so he was someone who was full versed in the book, and he studied it and everything. When the Prophet Muhammad came with the message at that time, he looked into that. He saw the proofs, and he was like, "Oh wow, Prophet Muhammad was unlettered, meaning like he didn't read or write." So right, and the Prophet Muhammad was, for the first 40 years of his life, he was known to be truthful, and he was a messenger the first 40 years of his life. So I mean, like, he was the messenger, but like he didn't have any revelation at that time.
Okay.
So he didn't know he was a prophet. So the first 40 years of life, he had a reputation with the people. He was known to be truthful. He was known to be good, and his whole history on that. And the message came to him, and for someone that was unlettered, for someone that had did not know how to write, because they were in Mecca, where it's like like in the middle of the desert, right? So they didn't know how to read or write. He didn't know how to read or write. But then he had this revelation, and he had these things, and he brought it up. And when this person, Saad, when he heard this, who was, well versed in the Jewish religion in the book, he was like, "Wow, these things are actually true, and these are fit what was prophesied before." And so, and that's why he believed it. So, I guess my question was like,
well,
again,
let me. So
go back.
Let me jump back into it.
Sure.
So, because Islam does lend some credibility to Jesus, the thing that stands out to me is that there are a whole bunch of religions and worldviews that point back to Jesus and say there's some credibility there. But then Jesus points back out to the rest of the world and says, no, everything else is wrong. I am right. Like I am the way and the truth and the life. Like, nobody comes to the Father except through me.
Yeah.
So the fact that Jesus denied credibility of other, and I know that Islam came afterwards, that seemed to be the biggest indicator of like, okay, well, if everybody gives some credit to him, and he gives credit to nobody else because he is claiming to be the Son of God, and I don't know, what the nuances of believing that specifically the New Testament is corrupted. Although for me, it was like, okay, well, if there is even the amount of prophet, Messiah, whatever it is that Jesus is, and he's came from God, and God has power over, like, he can work miracles. I believe that if he wanted to rewrite all of the 100%. Books in the world, he could do it like 100%. That. And so the way that Jesus's testimony and life is delivered to us through the scriptures in the Bible, I believe that is a miracle, like an act of the Holy Spirit. Sure. And that it's not like there's this separate untold story of Jesus, and then there's like this is the way it was given to the world. Yeah. And not only that, but and this is this could be playing. I forget the logical fallacy it is. If you like, just because other people believe it doesn't mean you should believe it. Although one thing that is striking to me is that the Bible only surpassing the Quran, like the Quran's second to it. So you can have the same thing, but it passes all the bibliographic tests really well. So that's the internal test, the external test, and the bibliographic test. So the internal test is how does it contradict itself for a book its age, and even amongst critics, right? For a book its age, it passes it better than any other book in its time. Even history books, like the history books we reference about Rome, have
contradictions.
Within itself. And then if you look at external contradictions, like we look at the geographic sites of, So anyways, there's the external stuff, and people can disagree about it, but I see it, playing out in real life, like in history. And then the third one is the bibliographic test, which is how early was the first copy after it? How soon was the copy after that? And then how many copies? And then when's the earliest copy that we have, like original copy? So what makes that important is that the Bible, on that third test, passes it. I mean, it's not a surprising way, but passes every other compiled literary work, like the full Bible, not just the pieces of the Torah and the Dead Sea Scrolls and whatnot. But it's like, okay, this actually passes history, like the test that we give history books. And the Quran, I think only because of its age, is second. So that's not necessarily like a disproof of the Quran versus the Bible, but that's why I believe the Bible is because Jesus. Sure. That's the way I believe God. Like if there was any credibility to Jesus, then God, I sure hope he would have delivered it in a better way, other than every single gospel saying, "This is the Son of God. If you don't believe in the Son of God, there's no other way to him." So that's why I believe what I believe.
Okay, sure.
Does that feel like a good explanation of it?
I guess. Yeah. Thank you so much. Gives me a good understanding. Just to take a step back. Right? Just look at it from a different perspective. So, Islam does believe that. So, just like Moses, just like.
Sorry, I got a little bit fired up. I wasn't trying.
No, totally. You're totally fine. Just totally fine. I'm just trying to give like Islam's perspective. Right. So, Islam believes that we had all these other prophets like Moses. Your name is Joshua, right?
Yeah, Joshua.
That comes from we have a prophet. I think it's God, I forgot the name. There's an Arabic term for it, and we believe it's the name of prophet, right?
Okay.
So there's all these other prophets that came before, right? Abraham, Noah. Jonas, right? So we believe in all those prophets, and we believe that all of them came with the one message of believing in the one God, right?
Okay.
And we believe that Jesus was also a prophet, just like them, with the same message and everything, right? And so, and what we are told in the Quran, and again, if you were to look at like why you would believe the Bible in its essence, in its text, and like in its soundness, if you put that same test to the Quran, it would surpass it too. And there's no contradictions in the Quran. There's no nothing, and so that's why you would believe in, because of all its sanctity, of all its miracles, and again, we believe that all the other prophets before had all these miracles as well too. But we also we believe the Quran over that because of its recency, and also because it's also sound. There's no contradictions or anything as well.
Okay.
Right. And so the Quran tells us that Prophet Jesus, or we call him prophet.
Okay. Sorry. Let me.
Good.
We're gonna pause.
Okay.
And then you're gonna pick up where you were. Alrighty. Back
Alrighty.
to the Quran is infallible, and it has passes the internal, external bibliographic test. It doesn't have any contradictions.
So
you believe
so
that
we
there's
believe
some
it.
credit to other prophets.
So we believe that there is credits to the prophets, and we believe that they came. We believe that that they all had the same message actually.
Yeah.
And we know that from the Quran, right? We're using the Quran as reference for it. And I guess and the Quran also mentions that it came to bring together everything that came before it. So like all the books that came before it, all the messages came before it, and concise it and consolidate it to be used for all the rest of eternity, right?
Okay.
So relevant even till now, right? And so the Quran tells us in chapter of Mary, it tells us that Jesus said after his birth, and one of his miracles was that he was able to talk at a young age, right?
Yeah.
But after his birth, we are told that he was said, Inni Abdullah, which is
Does it say that in the Quran or in the Bible?
It says in the Quran. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Bible has its own
about Jesus being able to talk at a young age, or
it says in the Quran as well.
Okay, because I don't. The only thing I can recall is that Jesus, whenever he was like 12 or something, went and he was beyond his years. About talking about God in the temple. Is that what you're referring to, or like?
Okay, I'll tell you my account because what I learned because I don't know. Don't worry. Yeah, okay. I know there are different narratives.
Sorry,
no, don't worry. So all these stories are obviously in the previous books as well, because obviously they're about the prophets of those times, right?
Yeah.
But they're the accounts that are in the Quran. They're like probably a different account, different thing, right? So what happened was that we believe that Mary, right? She didn't have a husband, right? But she had a child, right? Yeah. And so because she was like kind of outs from the community, was like, how can you be so immoral? Because she was seen as I'm pretty sure there's like some sanctity like to Mary, right? About how she was a religious person and stuff like that. And so we respect her. But because the community thought that she committed some immoral act of having a child, right? And so she left the village to have the child, right? Because they were gonna, who knows what would have happened.
Okay.
And so she left the village and she had a child, which was Jesus, Isa. We call him Isa. And so he had this child. There was a bunch of miracles in that too. So there's an account about how they were in the middle of like there was a desert and she was by herself, right? So there's a miracle about how there was like water gushing, because she was in labor and everything was tough, and how the dates came fell by her, she was miracles of that. But she had this child, and then she returned back to the people, and she was told not to talk. She was told by God, or like she was like one of the angels came to her and told her like don't talk. When you go into the village, even though obviously if you're gonna defend yourself, you're right. But like she was told don't talk, and she was like, well, okay, so everyone would think that's like irrational, right?
Yeah.
But she was told not to talk, and she returns back to the village, and everyone's just like, what is this? Like, how could you do this? What is this? Immoral child, whatever. But then Jesus talks, and then he mentions, I'm the son of Mary, and that's the truth in it. And it's like, I don't want to get too much into details.
Yeah.
But and then he says, Inni Abdullah, which is I am the slave of God. Atani al-kitab, I have came with a book. Waj'alani nabiyya, and I'm a prophet.
Okay.
And there's more to it. There's more context to it. But basically, that's what we use as reference. So that's why we believe that Jesus was a prophet. Just to put some perspective to everything, right? And so to the accounts of Jesus being God, and we don't believe Jesus was God just for those reasons, and we believe that he came with the same message as all the other prophets before him. But we do believe in his miracle, and we do believe in the prophecies that came. So we do believe he's the Messiah, right? So we know he was a person that was prophesied to come, right, for those people for that time.
Okay.
But then there was also the prophecies of someone coming after him, and we also have references of Jesus saying that there will be someone coming after him as well. Right. Okay. And so we use all those references in the previous books, in the Torah, in the Injil, which is the Bibles and the Gospel, and then there was the Prophet Muhammad who came with the final book, the final messenger.
Yeah.
And so we use that as now a reference to be like, okay, this it was mentioned before, and the people at the time, the Jews at the time, asked him questions, because there's some questions that you ask a prophet. They were like before. I don't know the details of it, but there was like ways that you could prove prophethood by asking these specific questions, right?
Okay.
Like, when is the day of judgment, or questions like that, or what was the story of these people, or there was questions like that which no other people will have knowledge of except if they were a prophet, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so these Jews, I believe, were, or I think it was a group of Jews or Christians or a group of people, knowledgeable people. They came with these questions to the Prophet Muhammad, and they asked him these questions, and he obviously he didn't know the answers right away, but after getting revelation from God, he was able to answer those questions.
Okay.
Right.
Huh.
And there's a whole story on that. It's very detailed.
Interesting.
And, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's kind of brings the sanctity of, we know the Prophet Muhammad, and people at the time actually knew as well. And so a lot most of the people, like pretty much all the people that interacted with the prophet knew that he was the prophet of God and that he had the message of God, the Quran. It was truth.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories on it. I could go on and on, days and days, right?
I totally get it.
Yeah, and different accounts, and you could talk about the credibility of it.
We could probably talk here for hours. Hours. Okay.
So, and I know that's not even the objective of this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So
I couldn't pass up the opportunity, and also for the small amount of people that are listening, like
it's a good perspective because a lot of people don't have that perspective at all. They don't know what Islam is, you know. And so again, conclude. And so that's why we take the things that are said in the Quran over what was said in the Bible, even though we're told to reflect and return back to the other books, just to know, you know, just to be aware.
Okay, cool. Moving into, I'm gonna check the time really quick. Time has flown.
Time has really flown.
Yeah. What would you say gives meaning to your life?
Contentment, in its essence, people find in different ways, right? I think if you mean meaning, you probably mean like why live? Like why live? Yeah, like the you know, what makes you still want to be here, keep on living? What are you pursuing? It's a whole thing. So it's like, what are the like why are we here in the first place? I guess you could go into a more philosophical question, right? Yeah. It's like, why are we here? And a lot of people go through these discussions. I've talked to a lot of people that have had these like troubles where like they try to find themselves and you know they go and that's where a lot of suicide and stuff comes from, right? Yep. Because they just don't know why they're here and what their role in the universe, or I guess you could say, is. Again, religion ties back into it for me because we know that we were here to worship God and, you know, serve the people, you know, in our own capacities and do good, you know. And we have you know, an example would be from the Prophet Muhammad of how we could do that, how we should live. And that kind of gives me meaning because now I have a guide to life, right? Because other than that, then you're kind of just meaninglessly going through the world. You just don't know what to do. Why are we here? What are we doing, right? Yeah. And if, for example, if you were trying to find contentment in something else, like an objective, like a goal, it's like, okay, I want $1 million, right? I want to be rich. I want to be like the best singer of the time, right? Yeah. And then after you accomplish that, then it's like, then what's next, right? And that's where a lot of people, especially in like Hollywood, that's where you hear about all these suicides in Hollywood, right? It's because they don't have any further meaning to what life is. And so for us Muslims, and for me, it would be like to do good, to worship God, and to, you know, be in a good position with God, with myself, where I can earn, you know, paradise, you know, and you know the highest levels of paradise too. You know, so you strive for the highest. And so that's where I find my objective, my fulfillment of life.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, we could talk about.
This is kind of like close to the conclusion point. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity.
We could talk about our perspective on society, I guess. Like.
Okay. Yeah. What
like,
is your perspective?
I guess
on society?
we could talk about like. There's a lot of deep discussions that I actually wanted to ask a lot of people. Okay. Like, interpersonal relationships with other people. And also society in itself. Like, do you see do you see flaws in society, or do you think society is in itself is a good place? Or
are you asking me?
Yeah, I just wanted to know perspective.
Yeah. So my experience with talking to, I think I'm at like, so now it'll be 13 people actually. I said 11 earlier, but you are 13. What I hear from a lot of people gives me hope, because 12 of the 13 people I've talked to, I haven't heard it as much from you, so I'll say 11 of the 13. Okay, it's all about people. So it's about they believe what they believe based on how the people that believe those things treated them, right? So if for most of the people I've talked to, I'm not religious because of the way religious people have treated me. Yeah, that's pretty deep. I am religious because of the way religious people have treated me. Yeah. And then whenever it comes to the meaning of life, It is almost always, and I'm not going to discredit them in that. Like me, I would say like, oh, that sounds like me 3 months ago might have said like, oh, that seems kind of shallow. Like that's the summation of it. But
That's
they're like
the meaning is that simple. Right?
Yeah, it's like to be good to other people around you. That's the meaning of life is to be good to other people. So the thing that kind of stands out to me is that specifically the younger people that I have talked to, and I've tried to get a wide range of people, is that it's about how we treat each other.
That's so true. Yeah.
So there's that. I could go into all the stuff about World Economic Forum, whatever, insider trading in politics.
Yeah.
And just all that kind of stuff. But, I think I'm not living this life for this life. I'm living it for the next.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I see a lot of good in the world. I do.
Nice.
And I think that one of the things that's lost on a lot of young people is how good their lives are. It's like because like the second interview I had that I put on this, her name is Rochelle. She struggled with committing suicide, a lot. So, and that's not uncommon for people that I just know normally in my life. And I think it's just this, there's this not knowing, not being connected to people around it, around them. And there's not also like this, like striving to seek the people that don't see eye to eye with you. So there seems to be one, both left, right, Islam, Christian, whatever, right? Where it's like, okay, we care a lot about people, but then there's not a whole lot of effort. Maybe there's like, if there is somebody around them, they would, have an interesting conversation, but they're not going to go out of their way to understand that person's point of view, where they're coming from. And I think part of like this lack of not seeking to understand results in not understanding, which not understanding people makes you feel lonely. Like whenever I don't understand somebody else, I think that I'm the only person that feels that way. Yeah. 100%. But the more I talk to other people, the more I realize that other people feel the same way as me. True. So that's kind of the purpose of this. But those are the I know that was kind of like a
I agree.
long answer, but that's specifically for our generation. That's something.
No, that's really deep. I kind of wanted to get into that too. Yeah, I did watch some of your podcasts, right? And I was thinking the same exact thing, where people's perspective and what shapes them ends up being what they interact with other people. Which is so tough. It's like, because if you have one bad experience, one bad mentor, one bad teacher, one bad parent, then your whole life starts to crumble, for them.
Well, I don't know which one did you listen to a little bit? Was it Leah?
I listened to both of them a little bit, but not the full thing.
Okay, yeah, because Rochelle, it was Christian and her her but beliefs. Then because of the way Christians treated her,
because of her beliefs,
so it kind of, I think there's anyways, I won't get into it too much, but then Leah, it was because of the way she would, the Christians treated her, so then she became a Christian.
That's what happens. It's kind of tough.
And well, like actually because of the way you responded about the politics thing, can I ask you like what portion of your life looks like it's just for people watching? This is more like the bonus section. So
if you want to check out now.
What do you primarily interact with? Just family or Islam, or is it like the only time you interact with people that aren't part of Islam, like passing by them in class and the grocery store?
I mean, I talk to a lot of people. Okay. I talk to a lot of other Christians, Jews, and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I don't know who connected you to me.
Ari did. Although
I talked to Ari as well. Yeah.
Okay. Ari said don't tell him because he might think you're super combative.
I assumed.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, well, he didn't ask, so.
It's okay, man.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, and I talk to. That's why I hate interviews. I hate like talking.
Okay.
But I agree to this because I like your perspective and knowing and understanding different people's perspective.
Okay.
And I actually
yeah.
do that a lot too, where I talk to other people and talk about like their problems and why they feel that way, and how did they get there in the first place and stuff like that. And there's one topic I want to talk about, like social media. We'll talk about it soon. But yeah. But yeah, it's tough seeing how people shape their identity based on how people treat them. Yeah. And it's also a message to us, a reminder to us about how we treat people.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
we should take that as example. But imagine just having one bad interaction, being mean to one person, and that totally takes their life to another different course.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So yeah, it's also a reminder for us, but also a reminder for people that have gone through it, just to not take that as their only reason, and to explore and to see. And,
I like, for me, I hope that in explaining why I'm a Christian, I don't just believe what I believe because of the way people treated me, which is why whenever I started talking to people, I was kind of like, is that why you believe what you believe?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Really? Yeah, but then I that's, most people are busy paying bills and doing school. Like, I sometimes think to myself, why don't you have as much energy to be as passionate about
purpose?
Purpose, and who's up in the sky. And I say that cheesily, but it's a lot of people don't. They know what's in front of them, and people is what is in front of them.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, what are your thoughts on society? Like, do you have hope for it? Like,
I have some hope. There are good people out there. I'm not going to discredit that. Right? There are good people. There are good initiatives and everything out there. But there's a lot of things that aren't right as well.
Yeah.
And it's especially social media.
Yeah.
I mean, I use social media too. I'm not saying it's like terrible or anything like that. But there's a lot of impact that it does. And media in itself, actually, not even social media. Media in itself, there's a lot of impact that it does on people. And it's causing a lot of problems with people of our generation.
Yep.
A lot of people will get hate from media, which will, also, again, interactions with people in general, right?
Yeah.
But now, since you're always connected with people, because of social media, because of media, that really shapes us. That's probably what the problem is, because we have that total always connected with people. And we were talking about it in a class as well, about when people like fully isolate them from people, like when a group of people or a person isolates themselves from people, they'll find purpose, they'll find happiness and everything. But because they don't think about what other people are thinking, they don't think about, they just influence them, right? Now they could just reflect, right? But now, because of the connected with people, it's really tough. And a lot of the problems that people of my community or people, that I've interacted with, they feel lonely even when they're around all these people, which is ironic, right? You feel lonely when you're always connected, always with people. And then people, feel, and there's always like that small thing that will always tip them off.
Do you feel like you being on social media makes you feel lonely sometimes?
At times, maybe, but again, I social myself. I like isolate myself a little bit from social media. I don't use it that much. But like, imagine being in the group of friends, but then you see some of your friends go out and do something else, right? By themselves, and then now you're just like feeling left out. Feeling left out is like the whole feeling of being left out. FOMO. Yeah, fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for too. But yeah, that whole thing is like ruining a lot of people, and they're just like, damn, and they don't enjoy what's right in front of them too. So at times, it's like lonely. It's like, oh, people are having all their things, and I'm just doing my own thing, and it's like, I could enjoy myself right now too, instead of like studying, doing my classes.
Maybe it's just me, because I spend a lot of time on social media, but I'm running my own race. Like, I don't. And that's the thing is, it's really hard for me to empathize with people that have FOMO, because I spend a lot of time on social media, and I still like.
It's different for everyone.
Yeah, it's different for everyone. But that's for sure a thing. And I think the thing that makes me, I don't even know if it's like the friends thing, But man, whenever it's like this close, not closeness thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
it's like it feels like if you were in a. This isn't a great analogy, but it's like if you were married and you couldn't hold hands.
That's true. Like, I agree. This is like the topic that I always talk about, because there'll be people that you spend like your whole day with, right? But you don't feel close with them too.
Yeah.
Which is so strange. It's like weird.
Super strange.
It's so strange. It's like, where do you find the deep connections with other people when you're like, they're not willing to have the deep connections, but it's very shallow. And it's like, they have these shallow interactions. They'll have these shallow image. They'll just do it for the flicks,
and
you know, and stuff
I think
like that.
both of us can probably connect on like the place where we find connection is inside our religious communities.
Yeah.
I hate using the word religious in that way, but people who believe the same thing as we.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and just ask you this. What is something that you would say is an encouragement or for people to contemplate or ask themselves that are younger?
I had, again, this is something you just have to reflect. There's a lot of reflection you have to do. You have to understand. I went through this like 2 years when COVID started. It was actually kind of where my era of contemplation started. You know, because before that I was like busy with a lot of stuff. I'm pretty engaged with the community. I'm always like doing things and stuff like that. But then when COVID came, it was like everything stopped. Everything stops, and now it's like you're just left with your own thoughts, right? We need that time for ourselves. So we need to think about like what makes you, like, right? Yeah. What defines you? Like, are you just another person of this group? Are you just another person of a community? Are you just are you them because you're part of the community, or like what makes you different? Like, what are your qualities? Like, where do you find like where's your personality basically? Like, what makes you different than other people, right? Finding that and finding like purpose again, religion, or whatever it is for the person, but then just thinking, just a reflection, but isolation at the same time. That's where you'll really find answers, and that's where you'll really be able to deal with like the issues that you have as well. Sorry.
It's all good.
About like, why am I struggling, right? Why am I depressed? Why am I I don't know, like whatever issues you have to think about it. You can't just be like, okay, I'll deal with it when it comes, or it'll just go away, because that's how things get worse, right? And a lot of people nowadays, when they're engaged with school, when they're engaged with work and stuff like that, they'll just bury everything, and then realize like 3 years down the line, and they'll just completely shut down because it just overflows over them, right? So having that isolation, having that moment to just step back. And again, that's where I find social media to be a problem, because people can never step back, right? Because you're always connected. You just pull up your phone. I could do it right now, right? But having the moment to yourself, just think about what you're doing. Think about why you're doing it. Think about the issues that you have. Think about what can you do to solve them. Think about the different directions that you could take. Maybe you need different friends, maybe you just need to change your lifestyle. Maybe, whatever. So
take a moment to step back, evaluate your life, find deeper connections than social media, find purpose. Don't let there not be purpose.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
And even with friends, like you could have friends just to hang out and stuff, but like if you don't have like objective, for example, a lot of people that are really good friends are people that have like an objective with each other, like we'll become better people like together, stuff like that. We'll improve on each other. We like, you help me, I'll help you, If you're struggling with like waking up early or you're sleeping all day, right? I'll have a friend that will be like, oh, you should wake up, you should come, we have morning prayers. So I'd be sometimes slacking on them because they're like especially in the summer, they're like at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? 5 something in the morning. Now they're a little bit tolerable. It's like 6:30, and it's a struggle. I try, and there's like a lot of benefits and rewards for going to the mosque and praying. But if you have friends that are like trying to improve you, and you're not just like a sack of potatoes, just sleeping in bed, that's where you'll find meaning. That's where you'll find deep relationships with people.
Oh,
but
man, I'm interrupting.
No, you're totally
deepness. Fine. Okay, all right. Do you feel like that's a good stopping point?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, great. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday.
Alrighty.
Here we are at the end of the video. Since you're here, you might as well consider liking and subscribing. Always remember to keep on seeking to understand and love the people around you. I'll see you next Saturday, guys. Bye.